be sure to go to flipsidegaming.com and use promo code 6 for 10% off on orders over $10. It's a good deal and helps support the show. What's up, Planeswalkers? Etheric 6 back with some more Magic the Gathering Arena. And before things get started, I just want to mention, I've been seeing some interesting stuff about this website called arenabrawl.net. For what it's worth, you can totally go to my Discord server, and we have nice, friendly matches of Brawl there. However, if you're looking to get your Brawl fix, and you just can't deal with the fact that Wizards doesn't have an all-the-time-on Brawl queue, you should totally go to arenabrawl.net. It is currently in beta, but it's fantastic for just getting in random games with people, so you don't necessarily have to bug a friend all the time to do so. So I just wanted to mention that out. They're not paying me or anything. It's just Brawl's really fun. Okay, Brawl is a ton of fun, and I know that a lot of people can't constantly play Brawl since, sometimes their friends don't play or they don't want to play with you or whatever. But yeah, so we're going to be playing some Bolas today. I'm going to be doing something a little bit different after I stop misclicking on the store. I'm going to be building the deck, essentially. But first, I'm going to be getting a code. Oh, look at these beautiful sleeves. To answer your question, yes, I did buy the Secret Lair things. A big reason was for the sleeves. Another reason is, well, I really wanted like a decent number of these. I really liked these arts. I really liked these arts. These arts, and these arts. Wait, these arts. Whatever. My pointer is not great. Regardless, getting these sleeves is a nice bonus. I don't know what I'm going to do with the MTGO stuff, because I also have digital stuff for that. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, because I don't use MTGO. Maybe I should, but I don't know. Anyway, so we're going to be making the deck, right? What I have here is what I like to call the base of the deck, right? We have a basic iteration of the lands, so this is a 26 land mana base, right? Where we essentially have 4 of each of the shocks, 1 Temple of Epiphany, just as a nice scry, 3 Dismal Backwaters, because blue and black we're predicting are going to be the color that we need more often, 2 Castle Vantress to work with our fires, and then of course 3 Fabled Passage. So this is kind of the baseline mana base that I'm planning for this deck. Also, this is a Grixis deck. We're playing Nicol Bolas. That is our kind of top end card. We only have 3 because I do think that 3 is the base. Whether you go down to 2 or up to 4, I think is going to change depending on what exactly you're looking to do. Then, of course, we have Fires of Invention, because as I've shown previously, I do think that technically the best way to build Grixis right now is the Fires of Invention route, and I do understand that I did just play Historic Grixis. However, this is my channel. I like Grixis Bolas, and I don't care. So we're doing this. I do think Fires of Invention is the correct move, because you want to be able to play removal and a threat at the same time. You want to be able to draw cards and play a threat at the same time. Just because of how punchy the standard environment is right now, I really do believe that in order to play Grixis Control competitively, you're going to be needing Fires of Invention. And of course, Thought Erasure, because Thought Erasure is strong. That's just it. So now, before we get into the deck building, I'm going to scroll and once again show how bad their thing is. Where are my sleeves? So it's possible that my sleeves, I have to reset Arena to do so. Fuck that, I'm filming, I don't care. This is just going to be making the deck. I'm going to make another video for the gameplay, post them both the same day, whatever, it's fine. I'll change the sleeve. Anyway, so this is what I think the base is. Now, there are a couple of routes you can take with this deck. And we're going to be looking at the metagame right now. We're going to be looking at how the deck looks as it is, and we're going to be going over several options. So I think the first thing I want to talk about is whether or not we're going to use Fae of Wishes to have a wish board. Now, in the past, I've gone very heavy on the wish board, and it's possible that I shouldn't be going so far in. It's possible I should be playing maybe 2 or 3 Fae of Wishes and have a few cards in the sideboard as wish targets, right? It's possible. I don't know. I don't know if that's the correct move, but that is something that we'll have to consider. Related to that is whether or not we want to use the Clover package or the Adventure package. If we do end up wanting the full wish board, We can also include a Clover package or an adventure package that uses Lucky Clover, Bone Crusher Giant, Fae of Wishes, and Murderous Rider. This will allow us, those are the main ones. You should probably run a couple more adventure cards, but those are the main ones that would allow you to get a little bit more mileage, right, out of your adventure cards. Now, some of the other cards that I consider when I'm considering this this Lucky Clover package is Hypnotic Sprite, for the fact that it can counter smaller things. Obviously, it doesn't work super well with Lucky Clover, and it doesn't work super well with Fires of Invention, which is why not the best. Brazen Borrower is a similar issue with Fires of Invention, in that unless you don't have fires out, which you usually do want to, it's not as strong in this specific build. It is nice being able to have some sort of flash flyer. It is technically nice being able to bounce something, but do we want that in this build, even if we're doing the Lucky Clover route? Not sure. The only other ones I can kind of consider, at least in my opinion, are hilariously Foulmare Knight, because the Death Touch is not insignificant on a chump block body, and being able to draw a card and just lose a life, just as kind of a cycle, is not awful, especially if you're able to get 2-for-1 out of that. And then Reaper of the Night is just fun to decimate your opponent's hand, even if this is like a 1-of or something. You, of course, have access to Empress Shieldbreaker. However, what we're going to see in a bit is that there aren't a ton of artifacts that you have to care about. There are some, like the Oven, but... And that's kind of it. And that's one of the main reasons why I don't think I want to go with the Clover package, right? So that takes the Clover package out, which also does dock some points for Fae of Wishes of, do we want a full wish board? I do believe that in order to play Grixis adequately, we're going to need a couple of Fae of Wishes, right? I do think that we want at least 2 of these, and we're going to want a couple of wish cards in the sideboard. However many we decide at the end will change. Another thing we should consider is whether or not we're going to have a Planeswalker package. And this Planeswalker package essentially would include Beacon of whatever the hell it's called, Interplanar Beacon, as well as a significant number of Planeswalkers. When I say significant, I'm not entirely sure on the correct numbers that you're going to want to make Interplanar Beacon worth it, but it does also affect the cards that we can cast otherwise, right? It's going to be harder to cast Cry of the Carnarium, Murderous Rider, Ritual of Soot even, Answer the God-Eternal Kefnet. It's going to be harder to cast all of those spells because some of our lands are going to be only multicolor for the sake of Planeswalkers, right? So that is something that we have to consider when we're deciding whether or not to make this Planeswalker addition. Also, you have to really get the numbers right on which Planeswalkers you're getting. We don't have access to white, which means we don't have access to Teferi. We don't have access to green, naturally, so we don't have access to Tamiyo, right? These are kind of the things that we can do. So obviously Narset is a fantastic card that we might have in the deck anyway. You could argue for Mu Ling, however, I've really not had any reason to keep her in any of the decks I've played that have been Grixis oriented. Jace is a meme. Liliana is fantastic, but we possibly are going to be playing Liliana without the Interplanar Beacon, without the Planeswalker package. Davriel, we could theoretically lean heavier into a discard package, which is another thing that you can kind of see, where you have Davriel, you have access to the Ugly Reaper Man as well, and you can like have those things, but I don't think it's worth it in general. Chandra, Acolyte of Flame, she's too aggressive for what we're trying to do. Chandra Fire Artisan does give us some kind of card advantage, however, it's not the best because we can't hit our opponent's creatures, right? If Chandra Fire Artisan instead said deal damage, when she takes damage, deal damage to target creature or Planeswalker, I think it'd be a lot better for our purposes, but dealing random face damage isn't really what we're looking for. Sarkhan is kind of the reason we would want to play the Planeswalker package here. Being able to increase our clock out of nowhere, for lack of a better term, is amazing, right? If we're in a tough spot, and we have several Planeswalkers, but we just haven't drawn what we needed, a Sarkhan can mean that we win the game. We don't need to wait for that board wipe. We don't need to wait for that single target removal on our opponent's pesky Planeswalker or pesky enchantment or what have you. It allows us to just say, oh, I suddenly have lethal. And that is something that is very profitable depending on your metagame. Chandra, we're probably going to have anyway. We can't cast these. They're showing up because they share some colors. Ashiok, we're not a mail package. Ashiok doesn't help all that much. Saheeli is actually, in my opinion, same with Sarkhan, one of the bigger reasons to play the Planeswalker package, and that is simply because she allows us to have some chump blocking while we get our Planeswalkers assembled, right? And that's literally all I have to say. Her -2 does almost nothing. Almost nothing. Royal Signs are okay. I've not been able to play with them. I don't see them being that good. We're going to skip you for a second. Ral is a Viceroy, as well as, not you. Was it Eugene? They do offer some things. They both offer kind of removal as well as some semblance of card advantage. No, it's just actual card advantage. But, you know, once we're getting to these 5s and 6s, it's like, how much does that help us maintain living, right? So, not entirely sure about those. So, what do we think about the Planeswalker package? I think it's reasonable in certain metagames where you're looking to grossly outvalue your opponent. But as I think we're going to see in a second, I don't believe that's the metagame that we have. You could also do, I'm going to stay here for a second because of the cards involved. You could also do kind of a spell package. Saheeli, like an instant sorcery. Saheeli is helpful for that, as is Ral, as is other Ral. That is an option. It does commit you a little bit more towards instant sorceries than I think I'm comfortable with. So for right now, I'm going to stick away from that. Okay. So Justin, why did you just talk about all of those ways that you can take the deck if you're not going to do them? Because I think it's important to note that there are ways you can build this deck that I'm not doing, that it could be, that I should be, right? But I'm not doing that. And I'm going to look quickly at what the metagame for Standard is kind of looking like right now. So I'm not sure how well you can see this on your screens because my OBS window is smaller than YouTube window thing. Anyway, but we have here MTG Goldfish. Now, I told you before, I use MTG Goldfish liberally when I'm constructing decks to kind of see what metagame I have to play against. Over here, we have some recent events: Jund Food, Gruul, Jeskai Fires, Rakdos Knights, Food, Aristocrats, Ramp, Adventures, Flashed, right? Got some things like that. Over here, on this side, which you can't actually see my mouse yet, there we go. Over here on this side, you have the top decks by meta amount, percentage of the meta, right? Technically, this isn't super accurate because I think this is only people who post their decks to Goldfish as well as tournament reports. So, That said, I think it's still a helpful thing to kind of guide you. So, I've went ahead and opened in a new tab the first 8 decks. Looking here at Jeskai Fires, right? They've changed a lot over time, this Jeskai Fires list. You're seeing a lot of creatures here. You're seeing fewer Planeswalkers than you have in the past. And there's also no Wishboard. Initially, I did say I was going to model my Grixis control list after the Jeskai Fires list. However, I noticed that they have access to better cards in the main deck. So they don't have to use Fae of Wishes. I think I do probably have to use Fae of Wishes, so that's why I decided to no longer do that. What we can see, though, is that they're having a decent amount of creatures now. We want to make sure we can deal with these creatures and not give them too much advantage. Notably, they have few Planeswalkers, so we don't need to worry as much about Planeswalkers as we had before, right? Previously, we had to make sure that we had, like, an Elder Spell on the sideboard for sure. Not necessarily the case right now. Not a ton of Planeswalkers being all out at once. Additionally, they have, Deafening Colors and things, so we can kind of make sure that we're not playing too hard into the removal that they have access to, right? Let's see. Yeah. So what this tells me is that this is something that is kind of a situation where we would be the aggressor, or we would be the control deck, right? Even though they have a lot of control cards, in this, they have potentially more creatures than we plan on having. And because of that, we're going to want to control. Notably, the majority of these creatures do not die to Cry of the Carnarium or Ritual of Soot. So we have to keep that in mind, right? So this is one thing that we have to think about. Some other decks kind of require us to use Cry of the Carnarium and Ritual of Soot. So here we see one of the other popular decks, and in this Call of Familiar scenario is everywhere right now. It's just everywhere. We have essentially a Jund Food deck that likes to sacrifice things. It's just your general sacrifice deck, fewish lands, and just a ton of creatures. Notice, most of these creatures die to either, sometimes, Carnarium or Ritual of Soot. This doesn't. So we need to, noting this information and the information from the Fires list, we need to have some top tier, single target, large creature removal, right? Notably, Korvold is going to come in as a 5/5, an X5. Something I should have noticed, or noted, is that a lot of these are also coming in with more than 4 power, right? So keep that in mind. That has implications on whether or not we're going to use Enter the God-Eternals. This has, once again, a couple of Planeswalkers, but not a ton. So as you can kind of see, right now, the answers that we're looking for are the things that we need to do. Make sure that we can grind out with the best of them, have small and large creature removal, right? That's something that we need to make sure we have access to. This is very similar. This is just a Golgari food list, almost identical in terms of what they can do. However, they have Casualties of War. This card is a potential huge issue. It can decimate our value, right? So we need to think, how do we deal with Casualties of War? And there's technically a few ways you can do this. You can have Saheeli in the sideboard to get with Fae of Wishes. You can try and just Thought Erase it. You can try to Unmoored Ego it. Whether or not we're going to play an Unmoored Ego in the main, as well as potentially the side, remains to be seen, but keep that in your mind. Because this is something that we cannot let happen. One of these is almost death. 2 of these is death. But remember that this is a grindy deck as well. Rakdos Knights. This is aggro if I've ever seen it, right? These are trying to hit you and hit you real hard. Cry the Carnarium, Ritual of Soot. Deals with almost all of these cards. Does not deal with Spawn of Mayhem. That's why we have a decent number of single target removal. They have some artifact. Maybe we should have some artifact removal in here. Luckily, red, specifically red-black, has some of that. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. Rakdos Aristocrats. Very similar to all the food. You're noticing a pattern. A lot of small creatures running around. Mono red aggro. Very similar. Except this is super aggressive. Do we need something that gains us life? Right? So, we've had plenty of points against Enter the God-Eternals. Do we have some points for? Are there a sufficient number of super aggressive strategies that make us want life? Is it such that Enter the God-Eternals is too late? Gotta think about that. And, of course, Golgari Adventures. It has big cards and small cards. This, I think, is kind of one of the harder ones for us to deal with. But we need to essentially just make sure that we can outvalue them and kill their stuff. So, very similar, just make sure they die. Ozor's Control was in here. It's like 4 decks, whatever. I just want to talk about this really briefly, because this is just a deck that we also hate. This is just a counterspell, make us very sad deck, right? This is just going to wait and wait and wait and wait, deal with us with like Agent of Treachery and stuff. This, I think, is going to be relatively difficult as well. Mass Manipulation, Agent of Treachery, how do we deal with those cards, right? Those are the main thing. Okay, so now that we've talked about some of those cards, what are the things that we noticed? We noticed that we're going to want a lot of board wipes. Unfortunately for us, I don't know why. Scry, sure. Cry of. I hate. Sure, that makes sense. Anyway, we're going to want at least 2 of these. I might suggest 3. Ritual of Soot, also quite important. I hate that I wasn't typing. I'm going to go with 2 for now. So we have 4. 4 board wipes. Is that sufficient? Probably not. So I think we're going to go ahead and try and improve one of these. Now, from just what I saw, super aggressive things are, in my opinion, much more important. Additionally, there are a sufficient number of dice triggers and things that sack and go to the graveyard, cough, cough, cat, that I'm going to want more of the exile than of the wider creature net. So I'm going to have an additional cry. Okay? They might be saying, okay, are you going to be playing Lava Coil? You did say that you have a decent number of creatures to deal with that you don't like dying. No, because Lava Coil is too narrow in what it does, too narrow in scope. I do think that some removal between Tyrant Scorn There we go. Tyrant Scorn, Angrath Rampage, and where are you at? Bedazzle are important to use. Carnival Carnage is not nearly as good now that Lenoroth is out and Gilded Goose is in. Carnival doesn't hit as many things, unfortunately, so that's not a consideration. Bedeck is a decent card. It doesn't exile, which is unfortunate, but it does have that nice ability to destroy things in the late game, destroy lands of our control opponents. I don't think it does enough, though. Even though it does deal damage to a Planeswalker potentially, I don't think it does enough. Angrath Rampage allows us to deal with creatures, artifacts, Planeswalkers, and it allows us to do them early. If a lot of these Planeswalkers are going to be Teferi or Oko or 4 Men of Vraska, we are going to want something that we can deal with them immediately. So I do like Angrath Rampage here. Tyrant Scorn is nice, but I don't know if I need it. But Devil does blow some things up. So we're going to put that in for the consideration. Tyrant Scorn. Where are you at? Tyrant Scorn. Tyrant Scorn. I like Tyrant Scorn. It allows us to destroy a lot of creatures in the metagame. But bigger creatures, which as I said for the Just Got Fires deck, bigger creatures were going to bounce back to hand. A lot of those creatures, the Cavaliers especially, are creatures that have valuable ATB effects. And I, frankly, can't afford that. So I do think Tyrant Scorn is not something we're going to want to do. Now, what about Drown in the Loch? I did have a couple people ask, should you be playing Drown in the Loch? This is a card that is deceptive in that it gets better the later the game... Deceptive. It gets better the later the game goes, but I would be replacing some form of early removal for it. I don't know if that's correct. Additionally, it can counter any spell, but can only destroy a creature. And the fact that it can't target Planeswalkers is a point against it for sure. While we're here, Discovery Dispersal. Is this something that I'm going to want? Now, this is something that bounces, just like Tyrant Scorn does. However, something that bounces and forces a discard on. It's possible we're going to want this because of the fact that it also allows us to scry and draw a card. Get some card selection in. Okay. So, if we're looking at what we have here, we might notice something that's interesting that's missing. We don't have our Murderous Riders. Do we want to be playing Murderous Rider? Now, earlier on, I did mention that we are going to need some target removal, and we're going to need a way to gain life. This is both of those, and I think this card is better than I've been using it as. I think too often I'm trying to get value out of Swift End, and not just playing this as a 2/3 lifelink creature. So I actually think that this is one of the stronger cards that we can use, but if I include this card, I am decreasing the room I have for Narset and Bedevil. Bedevil lets us hit artifacts, but if we lean heavily into Angrath Rampage, we should have a sufficient number of cards that can deal with artifacts. So we can drop Bedevil and put Murderous Rider up to at least 3. Let's say at least 3 for now. Angrath Rampage then, we're going to put up to 3. Notice, we have 9 cards to go. That isn't a lot. So what are we missing here, right? We have a good wide removal package. We now have some decent target removal package. Not necessarily where we're stopping, but we do have some decent target removal here. But what are we missing? We're missing the grind, right? We're missing the ability to duke it out with our opponents. Now, obviously, Fae of Wishes, Bolas, Castle Vantress, those help. But they're not necessarily what we're looking for. So what can we add? We can add some card draw spells. Instant sorceries. Adding these would help the deck a lot, right? Get some Kemper's Insight. We can use twice. Drawn from Dreams. We get to pick specific cards. Temple of Epiphany. We get to scry 4 before we draw the cards. It's a sorcery, which is unfortunate. However, with Fires of Invention, oftentimes we're not casting at instant speed anyway. So we can. That's one thing we can do. Commencing a game, I think, is a little too expensive. That's one thing we can do. Another thing is we can just play some Planeswalkers. We wouldn't be playing a sufficient number of Planeswalkers to warrant playing the land. And I'm playing the Beacon. There we go. Because with only 9 slots left, we would have a total of, 12 Planeswalkers? I don't know if that's sufficient to kind of mess our mana base up to that degree. Another thing we might want to notice, right, is that so far, we have relatively few blue pips. And it's possible we want to keep that the case, right? We want to try and maybe maintain that. So instead of going Drawn for Dreams, which is what I've usually been doing, maybe it's correct to go for Temple of Epiphany. There are a few things wrong with that. One, in the Just Cast Fire list, as well as some other lists, we did still see Narsets. Drawing cards, because of Narset's ability, is still possibly a bad thing. This just puts cards into your hand. So I think we're still going to go with Drawn from Dreams. Let's say 2. Okay? Down to 7 cards. Are we going to be adding Planeswalkers for the remaining 7? Well, obviously we said Narset's powerful, but it is 2 blue pips. So is this. So are we going to be making our deck a little bit too hard to cast? Possibly. I'm going to attempt to use just 2 Narsets. There aren't enough card draw spells in the metagame right now for me to think that more than 2 is necessary. Actually, you know what? Going through just the 8 lists I pulled up, Golgari Adventures and Azorius Control are really the only decks that draw a lot. Just Got Fires does have Cavalier of Gales, which is hilarious when you get that off. But maybe I don't need Narsets. Okay, well, we take those out, sure. But we do need some sort of card advantage. Do we increase the discovery? Or do we try and go with something else? Now notice, I'm gonna switch gears here for a second. It'd be great if we had some super late game cards, right? Just get some super late game cards in there. Why are we picking Ugin? Why are we picking Chandra? Why are we picking Liliana? We're picking Ugin because Ugin allows us to get rid of enchantments and artifacts. It lets us get rid of essentially anything. Very helpful. We're picking Chandra because she can't be countered. We're going to be able to do something with her. Period. Liliana is chosen because it's a good way to deal with 2 big creatures, right? Cry the Carnarium, Ritual of Soot, they don't necessarily matter if our opponent has 2 large creatures. Obviously, if they have 3, it's an issue, but it does allow us to get rid of 2 big things, whereas another type of removal would only deal with 1. But what about Brawl? Well, as of right now, we have 16 instant sorceries. That's an okay amount. I actually don't know if Brawl counts these instant sorceries. I think they do, but I don't actually know. But also, Nicol is kind of in the way, blah, blah, blah. Saheeli is another option. And Saheeli, technically, easier to cast, because we can use a red. What I'm thinking is, do I keep the discoveries? I'm thinking over it, and I think I'm going to make a very slight pivot. Yeah, I think I'm going to make a very slight pivot. And I think I want Kefnet back. Kefnet is a card that is relatively difficult for other control decks to remove. That is 5 toughness, so it doesn't die to any God-Eternals, it doesn't die to Lava Coil. It does die when blocking some large creatures. It trades favorably with what's that adventure card? The big questing beast. But importantly, it comes back. So this is something that we can grind real nicely with. Additionally, it lets us get free spells. Now, some people are concerned about its interaction with Fires of Invention. However, what Fires of Invention says is that you can't cast spells. You can only cast spells during your turn. This doesn't mean you can't cast things at instant speed. It just means you can only cast them during your turn. If we're only casting things during our turn, we're very unlikely to draw a card on our opponent's turn. So we're not going to really care about Kefnet's ability. But being able to have an additional spell, even if we can only cast 2 spells a turn, that's fine. if we're top decking, or if it's a spell that's very good for us, we still want to cast it. So I think having some Kefnets in here is good. Now we have 2 cards left. So now I think we want to look at kind of what we're missing, right? It's possible we should go up on Kefnets, possible we should go up on some Fae of Wishes, possible we should go up or down the Discovery. I think what I'm going to try, and obviously this looks very similar to a lot of the other Fires of Invention builds I have. Different in very many ways, though. And I think what I want to do is increase Discovery to 3. I was thinking about cutting it and putting a different 3-drop in. But I think the versatility of this card is worth running. Circle 2, draw a card. Two Fae of Wishes. I think I want to be able to see Fae more. I think I'll try 3. 2. Look at my curve real quick. 3.7, that's totally fine. Okay, and now we're going to use the thing that I use on all of my builds. Nope, nope, not that. Not going to there. Deck ideas. Gotta building your mana base. We're gonna build a mana base. Or at least we're gonna help. We're gonna get some help. So what I usually do is I get out good old pen and paper. This is pencil, shut up. And I just do a good old-fashioned blue, black, red. Those are the colors we have that we're using here, right? Those are the colors we're going to be using. And then we're going to use this chart. I feel like it'll break if I try and do anything other than just like zoom. It does not make the chart bigger. Can I just open this? It's good enough. You all can read it. It's fine. Okay, so we're going to go through this chart. We need blue, black, and blue, red. Blue, black, and black, red at the beginning of the game. So we go over here, right? In order to be able to cast it on turn 2, on curve, 92% of the time, we would need 13 lands if this were a single color, but it's not. So we're going to treat it, we're going to bump it up 1. We're going to go to 14. What that means is for each of our colors, we're going to need at least 14 mana sources. But oh goodness, what's this here? At 3, we have black, black. For 3 at black, black, we're going to need 18 sources. So we need 18 black sources. That essentially is a non-negotiable. 18 black sources, we're done with black, essentially. Shut up, Mail. For red sources, if we go over here, this is 10. We're probably done for red sources. Let's just double check, make sure we can cast Chandra. 4 red, red, that's over here at 13. We're fine at 14. But blue, that issue with blue, it came back. To cast Kefnet and Drawn from Dreams on curve with blue, blue, we need 16 sources, 16 blue sources. Okay, so tentatively speaking, we need 16 blue sources, 18 black sources, and 14 red sources. So what do we have? If we just count them, right? 2, 3, 6, 10. I have to make sure I counted that right. People will roast me. All right, cool. 10, 14, 15. 3 of these, I think that's close enough. We only have 1 of these to get. But with 3 of them, I'm going to go ahead and say that's probably fine for 16. I'm going to go ahead and skip down to red. Okay? We have 1, 2, 10. We might not have enough red sources. That could be an issue. Right. So let's say this is 11. We essentially counted this as one basic, right? So let's count it as 1 basic. So let's say we functionally have 11, right? We'll come back to that in a moment. For black, we have 3, 6, 10, 14, 15. That's not enough. So we have some issues. Do we except that sometimes, like, we're essentially pump black, except that sometimes we're not going to get our red and or blue, because we'd have to take a little bit from blue. Do we drop these in favor of easier to cast cards? Or do we drop these, for easier to cast red cards? The answer is neither. None. Why is that? The reasons, technically, Thought Erasure helps us surveil. Discovery helps us surveil. Fires of Invention allows us to not have to deal with mana colors at all. Now, obviously, we're not going to be able to do all of this, but all of those in conjunction mean that I'm more or less okay with red and blue. Still need to up black, though. So how am I going to up black without impeding too much of the other colors? I could add a 27th land, which is possibly correct. I'm not going to do it, though. Or I can drop this Fabled Passage for another source of black. I could add on the Dismal Backwater, which will increase the number of lands that come in tapped. Could just add a swamp. Fewer cards that come in tapped, but technically fewer resources for the colors. I could also add a black-red land. Red, frankly, I don't believe I'll have an issue with. But you know what? I'm going to go and do that. I talked myself into it. We're going to go ahead and add a Bloodfell Caves. Why are we adding these instead of the Guild Gates? These gain life. Right. So our spells, or our lands, are going to come in tapped more often than they were before. But hopefully, we've more or less solved our mana troubles. Okay, so that's how I went through mana bases. I still have to go through sideboard. Now, the sideboard, right, there's some things that we obviously need to look out for. Need to reset this to normal, do this. All right, cool. So we definitely want some form. Notice we didn't actually put Unmoored Ego in. We didn't have room for it. We're going to want some amount of Unmoored Ego. Right. Let's go ahead and chuck one of them in there for now. As I said before, Sarkhan is a fantastic way to end the game out of nowhere. So we're going to want a Sarkhan. Right. Plain-White Celebration is another way we could just end the game out of nowhere. By having access to, we have Bolas out, Plain-White Celebration, proliferate, use Bolas, cool. Also, this solves an additional problem. We can just gain a ton of life. Notably, we don't have access to this in the main deck. We have to rely on Murderous Rider to do a lot of that work. Hopefully that's okay. Let's see. If we're looking at the decks, even if we're looking at mono red, there is some, there's direct damage, there's some burn, but also there's just a ton of creatures. So I don't think Leyline of Sanctity is worth it. Is Leyline of the Void? Is Leyline of the Void worth it? I don't think so necessarily. But if you're just looking at the sheer number of food decks, the sheer number of decks that are running the cat, it's probably worth a slot, right? Okay, so what are we kind of missing here? We're missing a lot of that basic stuff. So let's add in some duress, shall we? Let's have 3 duress. Is Noxious Grasp worth playing? That's a white or green card, right? Let's say we have fires with white. A lot of blue in that deck, though. Not a ton of white. Jund, well, Cauldron from Moon can't deal with. Gilded Goose. It's kind of it. Golgari, once again, not actually a ton of things. Rakdos, obviously not. So I'm thinking, probably not. Fry, is Fry worth it? No. No, it is not. I forgot the damn name of that thing. It's in Jeskai Fires, though. It's called... Okay, apparently it's not. It's a blue card, goddammit. Blue, instant, 2 mana. Yeah, Aether Gust. Aether Gust might be worth playing. Some number of. Might actually be worth playing. Now, the other day, I had to deal with Mill. That wasn't a ton of fun. I don't think it's worth doing in this metagame, frankly. However, don't have a lot of life. There's some life gain. Don't have a lot of life. I'm going to go ahead and put in... Hate this game. I'm going to put in a couple of Ender God-Eternals. This essentially is when we kind of take out some of the super late game stuff for some more life against some early game stuff. We're actually going to add in an additional Ritual of Soot. Now, why are we going to add in additional Ritual of Soot? Fuck off. That's because we want it, frankly. But we're also going to add a Teferi Time Wipe. It's just called Time Wipe, isn't it? I always say Teferi's Time Wipe. This is awkward. We're going to add one of those for the wish board. So what are we looking at for the wish board? Well, first of all, do a lot more Unmoored Egos. Yeah, I do. I think I do. Second, Aether Gust. So we want more of these? Probably. Okay, so we have like one card left. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 dedicated cards potentially for a wish board. So what are we missing? I could add another card here. Could potentially add a Thought Distortion. Could add my own Casualties of War. Could add Tamiyo. Elder Spell, don't think I need. I think of these, of the cards that I just named, I think a Tamiyo might be the best. She lets me grind with the best of them, and I'm hoping that the remainder of my things are going to make it so I can deal with aggro pretty well. So that I think is the deck. We're going to go ahead and do this because I absolutely hate some of these. Chandra, no. Ugin, you're fine, I guess. Go away. Go away. Sarkhan, you'll look like cheese. Okay, I can't do it. There we go. So this is the deck. It looks very similar to many of the other ways I've made this deck before. But I went through it with you just so you can get an understanding of why I chose certain cards I did, and you can yell at me in the comments just thusly. I'm kidding. I think it's helpful to see a super in-depth look at a deck. Now, obviously, not many people are going to watch this. That's fine. I don't really care. We're going to be playing the actual game soon. I'm just going to skip straight to the end screen. Bye-bye.